Hey, what's going on? This is Mike. Welcome to episode 2 of MTG Vintage Flashback. Today we'll be talking about the reserved list, including why it's there, what has happened with it, and the controversy that surrounds it. First off, what is the reserved list? It's a list of cards that Wizards of the Coast has committed to never reprinting in a functionally identical form. Wizards defines functional identity by having the same card type, subtypes, abilities, mana cost, power, and toughness. From the early days of Magic, collectors realized how special the game was, and as they do today, helped keep a stable player base. Wizards recognized this and instituted their own reprint policy in order to keep original editions of cards collectible. This came in the form of white-bordered cards, which many players are familiar with seeing, but rarely know the reason behind why it was there. After Alpha and Beta limited editions, whenever a card was reprinted with the same art and power, it would be reprinted with a white border to distinguish it from the black border originals. Eventually, in an unrelated decision, Wizards would do away with the white borders for aesthetic reasons. Part of this policy was a requirement that each card needed to be printed with a black border before it could be printed with a white one. This resulted in some interesting original black border printing in the Renaissance set. Chronicles was a white bordered reprint set of selected cards reprinted from Arabian Nights, Antiquities, The Dark, and Legends expansion sets. Renaissance, unlike Chronicles, was released with black borders because the cards had never been printed with a black border in those languages before. This resulted in limited editions of these cards in foreign languages with black borders and original set symbols without actually having been printed in those expansions. At this point, Wizards began to realize that part of what makes a card highly collectible is its availability, or lack thereof. After essentially irritating the collectors of the game by even printing Chronicles, an appeasement was made: the reserved list. On March 4th, 1996, Wizards of the Coast published a new category of what they called reserved cards that would never be printed again in any border color or in any functionally identical form. This list included cards from Alpha and Beta that were not reprinted in Chronicles or 4th edition, uncommon and rare cards in Arabian Nights and Antiquities that had not already been printed with a white border, and rares from Legends and The Dark that had not yet been printed with a white border. In addition, through some convoluted mystical math, they decided that several of the recent and ongoing expansion sets would have no more than 25% of their rares reprinted with a white border, and the other 75% becoming reserved cards. Starting with 5th edition, Wizards would preempt the core set's release with a list of sets that might be reprinted. Any rare not reprinted in that set would be added to the reserved list. On July 19, 2002, Wizards announced a revision to the reprint policy. Of the changes, the major ones were several commons and uncommons from Alpha and Beta, such as Demonic Tutor and Juggernaut, were removed due to large player support. There were no longer separate reprint rules for English and non-English cards. An oversight of rares not added to the reserved list from Ice Age were added to correct the mistake, and cards from Mercadian Masks and beyond would not be added to the reserved list. Despite the strictness of the reprint policy, Wizards would go on to circumvent this rule 3 times in 2010. The first time was in March with the Phyrexia vs. the Coalition release of the Duel deck series, which featured a special premium version of Phyrexia Negator, a reserved list card from Urza's Destiny. When the Duel deck's product was previewed, it was explained that this was done on the basis that the reprint policy did not specifically include foil or premium cards, and therefore were allowed to be printed in those foil editions. Recognizing the community's negative reaction, along with the release of Phyrexia vs. the Coalition, Wizards revealed the From the Vault and Judge promo reprints they intended to release that same year, which also used this method to reprint reserved cards. This was ended with the promise that after these issues resolved, there would be no more reprints at all of reserved list cards. From the Vault Relics was released in August of 2010 and included special foil versions of 4 reserved list cards: Karn, Silver Golem, Masticore, Mox Diamond, and Memory Jar. Throughout 2010, 4 Judge Gift promos were on the reserved list: Phyrexian Dreadnought, Morphling, Thawing Glaciers, Wheel of Fortune. The reserved list continues to be debated among players and collectors. Some think it's essential to the longevity of Magic, others think it allows a wealthy few to keep the many from playing with older cards. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. That's it for this episode of MTG Vintage Flashback. If you liked what you watched, please leave us a like. If you want to see more, give us a subscription. Until next time, thanks for watching.